1. This was from my last job, global financial firm with the initials MS. I was a contractor to the IT department there for over a year. No, don't run away, the story's interesting, I swear. Had a lot of complaints against them. Original manager forgot to file paperwork, costing me a free position. Overworked. Culture that tried to sell more work as being a sign of praise, rather than pay to do more work, etc. Well, it was time for me to move on. I scored a great state job, better pay, great benefits, still work from home, and even then the office was even closer. All around, they wouldn't be able to compete. They were aware of this for about 2 months, as they almost sank it by dragging their heels on some verifications, like employment verification. I even flat out told my manager I'd be leaving at the end of the month. Finally had my official start date. Gave a bit over 2 weeks' notice to quit on a Friday, so I could start my first day on Monday. Here is where the stupidity begins. This place has a policy to run all software updates on a Sunday, so every Monday is hell. Everything is broken due to poor QA, all hands on deck. If you call off, they're gonna fight you, etc. They like to bully people, and everyone who left had some attempt to get them to stay longer. And it sadly worked. People don't get how little power they actually have. So my time came. Manager calls me up and goes on with BS. Tells me it's not proper etiquette to give only 2 weeks' notice. Since when? That I should know it takes a minimum of 3 weeks to complete training, so I should know they can't replace me in time. You had 1 to 2 months already. And how can I do this to my coworkers? I'm selfish and a bad person. So this doesn't get the reaction or response management wants. Now they bring out policy. They tell me it's against company policy to quit on a Friday. I know this is BS, but they don't really hand out policy books here. And HR is kinda, well, for contractors it's not a thing. Contractors are second-class workers with hardly any rights after all. Still, I'm leaving the company. How does this affect me? I tell them something to the effect that I'm the one quitting, I'm still going to leave on that Friday. Seriously not sure how this was going in their mind. They doubled down that I had to work the next Monday for them, I think hoping to get their foot in the door, ruin my next job, etc. Well, this isn't working for them now, is it? They're really fuming now. So they give their ultimatum. If I won't work that Monday, then I'm to sign out and not clock back in until I've changed my mind. They are looking smug. They are effectively threatening to fire me early, making me lose out on money and stuff. They know we don't have PTO. Well, I also have no care at this point. My finances are fine, my new job I need a full suit for. I guess I earned myself an unpaid vacation. I log out, they keep looking smug, leave me with another, "Remember, don't clock in until you've decided to be reasonable." The next day I don't log in. A few hours later I get a call screaming about how I'm late and I've caused so many problems. I cut them off saying I'm still not coming in Monday, so per our meeting I'm not to clock in. Silence. They ask if I'm serious. I ask if they were serious yesterday. They call me a pig-headed fool and tell me to just come in on Monday like they asked. Thought this was a demand. They then wait a moment and ask if I'm going to grow up and come back in. Well, I'm bored at this point, and ask if they're going to pay my new rate on Monday. I get a confused no, and I tell them they have their answer. They called every day that last week, bouncing between apologies, insults, browbeating, etc. While still always standing on the "you need to come in on Monday." This was a whole week of them, sometimes multiple days, begging me to come in, even part of the day to dig them out of holes, then doubling down that if you don't come in, that does mean you're coming back all the way through Monday, right? I'd already dropped off their equipment already, since I didn't need any of it at this point, even if I did finish my week. They even called on Monday to tell me I was fired for not showing up. I think they thought I was joking or playing hardball for a promo or raise. It's the only reason I have for all that. Or they really thought I'd throw my new job for them. They had a big focus on company loyalty that a lot of people seemed to buy into, so maybe they just assumed I'd be loyal. I did hear my old manager had to fill in for me as they couldn't get anyone to do my shift and my jobs. And that now, months later, my manager and several others quit, as everything is buckling. They promised more than they could deliver and drove off experienced imps like me. 2. So this is from back when I was in college. I was working a job on campus and my manager moved on to a different organization and was replaced by someone else who we'll call Karen. Now our team of 10 students worked super well, very efficient, and got everything as expected. Karen comes in and decides that the team needs to change the way we work. So she makes massive changes and makes our lives harder. But it's all part of the job and we deal with it. Also, I was the unofficial leader of the team and constantly advocated for my team. We were close and we knew what worked for each of us, and the rest of the team looked to me as a leader. So obviously Karen hated me because I'd advocated against stupid policies that had no benefit but only made our life harder. Each of us had a weekly one-on-one meeting with Karen to discuss the stuff we got done, needed to get done, etc. As always, I went in with an agenda, made sure she got all the updates I had, made sure she answered all my questions, made sure I answered all her questions, and then ensured I had a 5-minute space at the end for her to discuss anything she had to talk to me about. 2 weeks into the changes, she tells me that I have not been updating her properly. Surprised, I ask her what updates I didn't give, and as she lists it out, I point to the agendas of our previous 2 meetings and show her that I did discuss it. She says that verbal updates aren't acceptable and I need to email them to her. I am confused, but I know how to pick my battles and agree to it. In fact, she writes me up for not properly communicating with her, not giving her updates, and not keeping her in the loop about my work, so I'm pissed off. After the meeting, I check with my team, and this isn't the setup for anyone. Everyone gives her verbal updates and sometimes emails them, but there's no real rule for it to be an email every time. So I decide to follow her policies as she stated. That evening, I sent her a long email with the details of everything I got done over the last 2 weeks. The next day when I clock in, I send her an email with my tasks for the day. As I complete tasks, I update her via email, and if I'm stuck on something, update her on that too. I CC her in all the emails I send, and also send her an email at the end of the day with what I didn't get done. Now this doesn't take me long because I write most of these emails on my own tracker, so it's just a matter of copy-paste. However, when writing in my tracker, I do it on my time. But since this is a work-related task, I must do it on the clock. So not only is she getting approximately 15 emails a day from me, she is also paying me for about 1 extra hour each day. Given how new Karen is, she doesn't realize that I have built a mini network with some of her colleagues given my time in this job, and I found out that Karen now has a habit of ignoring all emails from me. I don't care about it because I'm now getting paid for stuff I was doing on my own time. A couple of months or so later, our department has to host an event. The tasks are divided and all is good. The 2 tasks I have are to manage the food for all the guests and provide parking tickets to the guests in advance. Large university, parking office is a pain to work with. I get the parking done and then I focus on the food the week before the event, because we only got final confirmations then. I realize that there are several guests who have various dietary restrictions. I also am suddenly told that a few of the guests are in wheelchairs. They told me that because they needed specific parking spots. But our venue is not accessible. Given the importance of this, I immediately email her, but knowing that she ignores my emails, I CC the parking team to ensure that they have a consolidated list because Karen obviously won't send it, and the person managing guests during the event, so they know to ask Karen about the special meals when the guests arrive. We don't have any more one-on-ones before the event, so I try to figure out how to tell her to make sure the guests aren't affected. I try to schedule a meeting with her, but given that she's ignoring my emails, she is also ignoring all my meeting requests. So I give up and decide to enjoy the fireworks during the event. The reason I need to talk to her is that I need the budget increased to accommodate these multiple dietary restrictions. Gluten-free meals plus nut-free meals all really add up, and we are at the max of my permitted budget already. Essentially, we had a meal budget of, say, $20 a person, but these special meals cost $25 a person. One thing that makes doing this difficult for me is that as much as I hate Karen, I do not have the ability to let that hate for Karen affect other people. So I spoke to facilities to get a ramp kept in the back room for wheelchairs, and found that about 5 of the people coming had not picked meals, so we didn't have to offer them meals. Got the caterers to set it up so we could provide a reduced offering to those 5, while ensuring that the gluten and nut-free meals were available for those who had asked. Day of the event. The guests in wheelchairs arrive and are stuck at the entry to the event that has 3 steps. Given that I'm managing the food, no one thinks to blame me, so Karen is frantically running around trying to find someone to throw under the bus, because her boss is chewing her out. Then I hear the words, gluten intolerant. 20 seconds later, Karen and her boss are in my face, ready to chew me out. I was fully prepared for this, and the conversation went something like this. Didn't you know we have people that cannot eat either of the standard meals? Yes, I did. I emailed you about it because we needed to increase the meal budget to accommodate that. Did you not speak to the caterers? I didn't get any such email. While her boss gives her a look. I sent it to you, see? Shows the email on my phone. Karen, says the boss. Karen is in literal tears because this event is her boss's baby, and people have gotten in a lot of trouble over messing up this event. But you didn't send it to me, did you? What do we do now? Let me figure something out. Also, I see people in wheelchairs. What are we doing about them? No clue. We're trying to figure it out. I'll take care of that too. 10 minutes later, I'm talking to the boss. I got facilities to give us a ramp that we're putting by the stairs for the guests in a wheelchair. And I spoke to the caterers, and we'll have the gluten-free and nut-free meals ready. Thanks. 2 days later, I had my one-on-one with Karen. Surprisingly, her boss was there. Lo and behold, Karen got written up. My write-up was removed. Karen stopped trying to mess with me. And the entire team now has laughs every time we mention a gluten allergy. 3. In the late 90s, I did a voluntary and unpaid internship in a sound and light rental company to increase my chances to get accepted for a professional training in light and sound engineering. I was assigned to their main warehouse to get to know all the equipment. There were a couple of other interns, and in fact the company heavily relied on them as cheap workforce and truck hands. The head warehouse manager was surprisingly kind to us. First of all, he knew that his job would be much more tedious without us interns, and secondly, he was fully aware that we came there unpaid, and it gave us enough space to experiment and, often enough, taught us how to operate and maintain even the most expensive equipment, like lighting consoles and moving lights. However, most of the time we were busy moving around massive speakers, lights, and rigging equipment, which is all really heavy. It was mostly loading and unloading trucks and cleaning stuff that came back from open-air shows and sorting it back to where it belonged. Cleaning a few kilometers of power cables or 500 shackles can be a very meditative and relaxing thing to do, when the alternative is to push a few dozen 120-kilogram flight cases and speaker stacks into a truck. On the plus side, 8 weeks of moving heavy things around is an excellent physical workout, and after a couple of weeks we got really quick at doing the unpleasant part of the job. Getting back to thoroughly testing sound effects, fog machines, and moving lights for things not specifically mentioned in the manual. As the company grew rapidly, they hired an assistant warehouse manager, who has spent the last 8 years in the military, and the head warehouse manager was able to make himself scarce. It took only 2 weeks for the new assistant to start ordering us around, and he went to great lengths to minimize our learning time. One of his first orders was to stop whatever we were doing immediately when a truck arrived and unload it as quickly as possible, while making sure to stay in the office container as long as possible to print the papers and chat with customers. One Friday afternoon, we interns were busy in an adjacent warehouse, putting up a new heavy-duty high rack. It was located in a wing of the facility from which we could not see the loading truck, and it took at least 4 of us to move even one of those 20-foot-high uprights. The moment we had already aligned one 75 degrees, the assistant manager stormed in angrily and yelled at us that yet another customer truck needed to be unloaded, adding, "I told you to unload all trucks arriving at the loading dock as soon as they arrive." Dropping the nearly upright stand caused a satisfying clang, and all 5 of us reluctantly went to the loading dock, only to open a 7.5-ton truck with a hydraulic ramp loaded with 2 flight cases on wheels that the assistant could easily have moved himself. I will never forget the evil grin on the face of one of the other interns as we walked back into the high-rack construction hall. After 2 months working there, we already knew the regular customers, especially this one hectic customer who would show up almost every Friday around noon to pick up a truckload of equipment for privately organized parties. In most of his visits, he would forget something which was not on the list already, and then return late in the afternoon to pick it up. And this day, it was none of us who had loaded his truck. So we went back to the high-rack construction, and let the high school student intern watch the loading bay for a late Friday afternoon truck to arrive. Hectic customer returned at 17:50, 10 minutes before Feierabend, or quitting time. Picking up stuff not ordered beforehand was not storage business, but required hectic customer to go upstairs to the rental processing floor where the good coffee machine was. Assistant manager unsuspectingly joined him. This would easily take 15 minutes. Good for us. In an act of glorious teamwork, we managed to unload the almost fully loaded 7.5-ton truck in under 10 minutes, and stored mostly everything back to where it had to be. The remaining time was spent to write a note to put on the back of the truck saying, "Assistant manager told us to unload all trucks. You're welcome. Have a good weekend." And then we ran. The next Monday, we were all prepared for trouble, but instead, head storage manager greeted us with the biggest smile we had seen on him, and presented us the note from the truck. Assistant manager admitted his order, and had been there with the hectic customer until 9 p.m. to repack and load everything. After pretending to be angry at us for a while, he turned out to be a really nice guy, and told us that he would have done the same thing in his early military days. Hectic customer became a friend and mentor, and soon took us to his productions. He had his revenge on some of us a few years later when he didn't show up to unload a trailer after a 28-hour open-air production. Some of us were freelance slight technicians and riggers by then. Four. During my last few high school years and early university years, I worked part-time in a supermarket at the checkout department. Of course, you would see your fair share of Karens and Richards and Kevins and entitled parents, entitled kids, etc. But no one in that store was more infuriating to deal with than the most recently hired supervisor. She was the kind of supervisor that will deny POT if you did not give your 4 weeks' notice, despite all of our contracts stating that we only needed to give 2 weeks' notice. But then when you try to give your 4 weeks' notice, she would say, "It was too long ago, I don't remember you asking me." At the time of this story, I had worked at this store for quite a few years, and every Christmas season I would say the same things to supervisors. "I don't have any plans, I'm not leaving town, so if you need me for extra shifts, just put me down whenever you need me, just as long as I'm finished by 9:30 p.m. They knew I would not care if it was any day of the week, just a 4-hour shift or 11-hour shift. I was completely free with no plans, totally flexible, and able to work mostly whenever. My only condition was that I had to be done by 9:30 p.m. This was because I had not yet gotten my full driver's license, and it was illegal for me to drive by myself without some kind of supervisor between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. The store was open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So, out of those 14 hours, I could not work 0.5 of them. It was a good system between, and led to me doing a lot of extra shifts, with a lot of them being last minute. Early November, the new supervisor asked me about my December and January availability, and I told them the same song. "You can put me down for extra shifts as much as you like, whenever, for any day, as long as I'm done by 9:30 p.m. She asked, "Why 9:30 p.m.? And then I explained her about my driver's license. She just nodded and walked away. Mid-November rolls around, and the December schedule was released. I was given plenty of extra shifts, as per usual, but you might have seen this coming. I was scheduled for 6 days a week, which would have been all good with me, except for the fact that 5 of them ended at 10 p.m. I found the supervisor as soon as I saw the schedule and reiterated that I could not work past 9:30 p.m. The conversation went something like this. "But you can still work until 10 p.m. "I can't, or else I'll be driving illegally, and I'm not going to do that." "Yes, but there are plenty of other ways you can get yourself home." "Like what?" "Have your family pick you up." "No, they are in and out of town on business. You can take the bus." "No, it arrives every hour, 10 to the hour. I'm not working until 10 and then waiting outside in the dark alone until 10:50 p.m. I was a 19-year-old female at the time. "What about Uber?" "I'm not working all day just to spend it all on an Uber to get home." "Well then, you'll need to find someone to fill in those shifts for you." "Nope, according to my contract, I don't." Then she just walks away. I'm left there speechless. Later that same shift, when she was the only supervisor around, she completely left me out to dry with a horrid customer who could not use the self-service checkouts to save his life, and took it all out on me. We've all seen horrible people like this, but this guy in particular was so bad. Co-workers, even those from different departments, kept coming up to me and asking me if I was okay after dealing with that guy. Not my supervisor, though. After I got home that day, I was done. I sent out CV after CV on job websites. My mentality was, if I'm gonna get paid minimum wage, I might as well do it somewhere better. Within a few days, I had a retail store asking me to come in for an interview. Within the next week, I had a new job lined up and ready to go. So I went back to the supermarket on my next shift and handed my 2 weeks' notice. All my other supervisors were gutted that I was leaving. I'm not saying I am some star employee, but I was always keen on extra shifts, barely took sick leave off, was so chill and willing to do a lot of the side tasks that no one else wanted to do, like collecting the shopping carts in the rain or empty the rubbish bins, and I just knew a lot of stuff about the checkouts in general. And I was gutted I wouldn't be working with them anymore, but working with that one bad supervisor hurt more than working without others. The day I handed in my notice, the bad supervisor wasn't working. I didn't see her until a few days later when she stopped me near the back of the store, around a few other co-workers. I'm guessing that she wasn't too happy she just lost a de facto full-timer just before the Christmas rush. She seemed a bit flustered, but still had that fake smile of hers on. "So I heard you're leaving soon?" "Yep, in just under 2 weeks." "But you've worked here for quite some time. Any particular reason why you're leaving so quickly?" With the biggest grin I've ever had on my face. "I already told you why. I'm not working those 10 p.m. shifts." It was beautiful. Within a split second of me saying that, her smile dropped, and she just stared at me, speechless. This time it was my turn to just walk away. 5. Years ago, I worked in the head office of a national corporation. Although we were all salaried employees, everyone had to keep a weekly timesheet. We had to account for everything we worked on so our department could build the appropriate team or group for our time. This was a company-wide requirement, so it wasn't just a case of our leaders micromanaging. The least time you could log was a 15-minute increment. Every minute of every day couldn't be billed to other departments, so we had a code that was billed to our own team's budget. This was used for general tasks, not specifically attached to any ongoing projects, like checking emails, status meeting your manager, training and development, and even filling in the timesheet. Management emphasized that we should use our team code as little as possible. I later learned that the less time billed to our team's code meant a bigger pool of bonus money for our whole team at the end of the year. One of the internal services that regularly billed our team's code was IT. Anytime we needed computer support, they'd send an agent who would troubleshoot and fix the problem. When the work was done, they'd get us to sign a work order so they could bill our team. No big deal. About a year after I joined the company, the IT department changed their billing protocols. While every other group in our company would bill you in 15-minute increments, IT decided that they'd bill in 1-hour increments. No idea how they sold that to the VPs, but no one objected. So if IT only took 15 minutes to solve my issue, they'd still bill my team's code for 1 hour. It didn't take long for my bosses to notice that our team's code was being billed a lot more than it had in the previous months. But no one connected the dots and tied it to the new IT billing practices. Cue malicious compliance. Here's how my next encounter with the on-site IT agent went. "Hold on, please sign this invoice." This invoice is for 1 hour's work. You were only here for 15 minutes. New policy, just sign it. I'm sorry, I can't do that. I don't have time to argue. We're really busy and I have to move on to the next ticket ASAP. Tell you what, I won't bill you for this visit, but next time you'll have to sign regardless of how quickly we can solve your problem. This happened a few more times, and I continued to object to any bill that didn't reflect the actual time spent on my issues. They kept agreeing to give me a free pass this time. After about the 4th or 5th time, the IT agent finally stood his ground. You have to sign this invoice. I'll gladly sign it in 45 minutes, once you've been here a full hour. Feel free to pull up a chair and sit down. He was clearly frustrated, but he decided to call my bluff. He sat down. A minute later, he pulled out his laptop and started working on something else. What are you doing? Getting caught up on a few things while I wait out the hour. Oh no, this is my time. You're not allowed to work on anything else for anyone else. What do you expect me to do? Just sit here and do nothing? Yes, if you want me to sign that invoice, then you will sit here and do nothing until the hour is up. This guy was stubborn, so he did indeed sit there for the rest of my hour. I signed the invoice and he went on his way. I shared this story with my colleagues, and they all decided to do the same the next time they needed IT support. This went on for about 1 week. Then IT changed their tune. They no longer asked anyone on my team to sign off on any invoice unless the job actually took 1 hour or longer. It turned out they were generating so many billable hours doing this to every team across the company that dealing with our malicious compliance wasn't worth it. They chose to service our team for free rather than give up those other 45 minutes they could build 2 or 3 other departments at 1 hour each. That year, our team saw nice bonuses when we had a massive surplus of funds in the team's budget. I heard the IT team made out like bandits on their bonuses, while many other teams saw little to nothing. The next year, the whole internal billing system was overhauled. We didn't have to account for our time anymore, and IT stopped issuing anyone invoices. All billing was managed at a more senior level. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 124. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do share it around. And before we go on, we have a little shout out to give to the author of story number 2. That was the story about the nasty boss that insisted on getting emailed everything. And this shout out goes to Training Outcome 5466. Thank you very much for allowing us to use your story at Training Outcome 5466. Okay, what day is this? This is Monday. It's Monday. Monday snuck up on us. Alright, Hellfreezer's question of the day. Do you listen to podcasts? And if so, what are some of your favorites? Feel free to recommend them down below. For me, I do listen to them a lot while editing. And recently I've gotten into semi-official podcasts. I think that's probably the best way to describe them. Tying into TV shows that I watch, or used to watch in most cases. A lot of them are retrospectives. I'm never really into official ones. The only official, quote-unquote, one I've ever liked was the Good Place podcast that was hosted by Mark Evan Jackson, who played Sean. That was quite good because although he was on the show, he was definitely a fan of it as well. But usually the other official ones are it's just nonsense promotional rubbish, really. However, the semi-official ones I'm talking about, a lot of them are Star Trek based. There's a recent one, what's it called? Is it Shuttle Pod? Something like that. It's hosted by Dominic Keating and Connor Trenier. And this isn't like an episode retrospective. They get people on from the show. Yeah, Shuttlepod it's called. They get people on from the show and just sit down and chat. So it's quite a nice, friendly conversation because these people have all known each other for years. There's also a True Blood one. Wasn't sure of it at first, but that's done by Deborah Ann Wall. Deborah Ann Wall. And Kristen Bauer, who played Jessica and Pam on the show. That's quite enjoyable as well. And there's a few others. Oh, there's Investigates. It's Gates McFadden Investigates. That's the Star Trek one as well. Same deal as the Shuttlepod one. It's just Gates McFadden played Dr. Crusher on Star Trek Next Generation. Gets people on. She's interviewing them. That's quite good stuff as well. And the rest are mostly just like fan casts. There's others. Some old ones I've still got that aren't really active anymore, like Harmontown. And, and technically Smodcast still gets updated, but it's not really Smodcast anymore. It's just Kevin Smith interviews people. It's not Smodcast without Scott Mosier. Anyway, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.